The first step is to create my character. I choose Samurai as my starting class and Golden Seed for the extra heals. After that, I prepare to confront my first boss of the run. Gravity. Still haven't learned its attack patterns yet, but one day I shall defeat Gravity. Probably. Now that we've arrived at Limgrave, it's time to address the proverbial giant in the room. How exactly are you supposed to beat Elden Ring without gaining runes? If you kill a boss, you gain runes. Kill an enemy, you gain runes. Hell, even if something dies near you, you better bet you're getting runes. With odds like that, how will it possibly be accomplished? My first plan is to test how possible it is to kill a boss without gaining runes. When I did Dark Souls 3 without gaining souls, I found a few methods to counteract soul gain. However, I have no clue if those same methods will work. Not to mention, I still need to kill the boss in the first place. But eventually, I remember how to fight Margit properly and immediately run to jump off the nearest cliff. Now, while the counter in the bottom right did remain at 0, it doesn't count. The operative word in this challenge is without gaining runes. The indicator over the rune counter that said plus 12,000 means we failed, but it is at the very least progress. We know at the bare minimum that we can avoid the number in the bottom right increasing. Now all that remains is to see if complete rune avoidance is possible. And to that end, some testing is required. The first thing I attempt is seeing if maybe I need to be faster with the gravity deaths, so I try to fight Margit closer to the edge. That way, after I kill him, I can jump off faster. And while it was closer, I still ended up gaining runes from it. It may be possible to avoid runes via gravity, but it would be an incredibly tight window of success. I'll circle back around to trying that, but first, I'd like to try a couple different options. The next alternative is the Memory of Grace. It teleports you to the last rested at Grace at the cost of all of your runes. So surely it will work, right? Or not. I did not gain runes, but the boss is still alive. Kind of an issue. Maybe I just mistimed it though, so I try to run it back. And just like that, Margit has been killed without gaining runes. Except not really. Of course it wouldn't be that easy. I didn't expect it to work in the first place, but I figured it was worth trying at least. In case you're confused why the runes were in my inventory when I loaded in, items like Memory of Grace only remove runes that are currently in your inventory. If you are due runes from a boss kill and use the item before you gain the runes, you will just return to find the runes safely in your inventory when you load in. A rather nice tidbit for Miyazaki to include if you were playing regularly. However, as you probably see, regular isn't my style. But if Memory of Grace won't work, what are our other options? Well, I suppose I could circle back to the gravity method, which was met with some varying success. Maybe this run is impossible after all. Perhaps it was foolish to attempt such a difficult challenge after not playing Elden Ring for a year. Well, I did have like 1 to 2 hours of practice before I started this run, but yes, I am that rusty. I'm definitely not the best at this game, nor do I know a lot of information about Elden Ring. But the one thing that I do have, that persists across everything I do, no matter my skill level, is my unwillingness to accept defeat. Because if Dark Souls has taught me anything over the years, it's that the only time in life that you ever lose is when you have convinced yourself that you've lost. Victory at last! Margit has been beaten without gaining any runes. As you can see though, the window for success to avoid gaining runes is very small, about only 1 or 2 seconds, and that's for bosses. Of course, not every boss arena will have a convenient ledge to jump off of, but we will jump off that proverbial bridge when we get there. The only thing that matters for now is that we have proven that it's possible, however slim the odds may be. While the majority of this challenge is the logistics of finding out how to avoid rune gain, there's also the obvious problem of, since we can't gain runes, we also can't use them. That means we can't level up, upgrade weapons, buy items, or other fun stuff that would make the game much easier. So it is important that I grab whatever I can to help. Like the wondrous physic flask, allowing me to use a higher variety of weapons when I grab the respective crystal tiers that go with them. I also make a trip to Australia to make a pit stop and grab the Radigan Source Seal, increasing my stats across the board in return for increased damage taken. But since we are so low leveled, the increased health more than cancels out the downsides to the talisman. Next is Fort Height, and for such a name you'd think it would be in a taller place, but not really. I grabbed the remaining medallion, but seeing the guy pursue me up the ladder gives me a bit of an idea. What if I could jump off the castle after killing this guy to give me the Bloody Slash Ash of War? It would allow me to not only deal hefty damage to enemies, but also damage myself so I wouldn't have to rely on gravity as often. Unfortunately, whenever you kill a regular enemy, you gain runes almost instantly, making it quite unavoidable, which certainly rules out a lot of ideas I had, but not much I can do about it. I make another quick stop to Raya Lucaria to grab another golden seed, increasing my flask usage, and since I have both halves of the medallion now, we can use the Grand Lift of Dectus to enter Altus Plateau, and the first half of the Royal Capital by extension. With all the golden seeds around the area, we are now up to 9 flasks, which is more than enough for this run considering most of the time I will be dying in one hit anyways. I suppose I should head and kill the Draconic Tree Sentinel while we are here. Well, that's certainly an issue. There is a group of archer golems near the Draconic Tree Sentinel. Once you get nearby, they will shoot their arrows. Not at you. No, that would be too easy, but instead at a group of other enemies, which, guess what, gives you runes when they die. I try multiple alternate routes, but even if you hug the edge, you still gain runes. And if you cannot get past these giants, there is no way to fight the Draconic Tree Sentinel and enter the main part of the capital, making this challenge impossible. Unless, by taking this alternate route and quitting out midway through, you can safely get past without aggroing the giants early. And even if the giants do shoot, once you are near the Draconic Tree Sentinel, you are far enough away that you won't gain any runes from what they do. With that out of the way, we simply have to kill the Draconic Tree Sentinel. And how bad could that possibly be? You know what? Instead of fighting Draconic Tree Sentinel for another hour, how about I take a break and do something that's actually fun? The first item I want to grab is the Bloodblade Ash of War. This will allow me to put the blood infusement on my katana. However, it is dropped by a scarab. Luckily, the scarabs are one of the few enemies in Elden Ring that won't drop runes when killed. Although dragonflies are sadly not on that list. Well, I'm pretty sure small one-shottable creatures getting in my way repeatedly won't become a recurring source of annoyance, right? I really don't like how I said that line. That's ominous. That's way too ominous. No matter, I simply run it back, and successfully claim my reward without killing anything by accident. The next item on my list is a dexterity physic. This would allow me to increase my dexterity by 10 for 3 minutes. It won't increase my damage by much, but anything helps. And after grabbing that, I head to the Death-Touched Catacombs to grab the last item on my list, an extra katana. Now that I have 2 katanas, 1 regular and 1 bleed, I can dual wield them if necessary. How creative, I know. But until we can kill Godric, this is going to be our best option as far as damage goes.
Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Before I kill Draconic, I want to kill Godric first, so I can get one of the questline rewards from 𝐍𝐆, because knowing me, I'll mess it up somehow if I don't get it done now. For those who don't know, if you talk to Sorcerer 𝐍𝐆 in his room before you kill Godric, you get his rapier. And while the weapon is decent enough on its own, the main reason I want it is because it already starts at +8, which is massive damage boost for us. Since you get the reward by talking to him after killing Godric, combined with the fact that Godric's boss arena already has a cliff to jump off of, it's entirely possible to get 𝐍𝐆's rapier without gaining any runes. Of course, we still have to kill the boss in the first place. The first step is to shake off the rust. Now, even though we certainly do less damage than we are supposed to be doing at this point in the game, Godric isn't that difficult of a boss. That isn't saying he is easy though. Most of the attacks that can be rolled aren't an issue. It's more of knowing what attacks can be punished by jumping and avoiding his wind attack that always seems to clip you when you aren't expecting it. And after a bit of much needed practice, I finally kill Godric and meet my good friend, Gravity. So, there's good news and bad news. Good news, I avoided gaining runes. Bad news, he has a long-ass death monologue, so he dies slowly. But all that means is we just have to wait some time before jumping off a cliff. So this time, instead of killing him near a cliff, I fight him normally, and then run for the cliff right after killing him. However, apparently, that's still too fast for him. The reason this issue is happening is because you only get credit for a boss kill once you receive their remembrance, or whatever reward the boss normally gives you. Some bosses have a long death monologue before they give you their stuff, and because you receive the runes shortly after receiving their remembrance, no matter what boss you are fighting, you will still have 1 to 2 seconds to successfully avoid rune gain. Luckily, since the problem with Godric is just we have to wait instead of dying quicker like some bosses, the solution is very simple. So I wait a decent amount of time near the cliff and then jump. Of course, that doesn't change the fact that Godric will not shut up. No, Godric, I do not want to hear your lame-ass death dialogue again. No one cares. Don't mind me, just waiting for you to die. Any moment now. Oh, come on. Really? Really, Godric? One more time from the top. While we have to wait for Godric's monologue to finish, we also have to time it correctly so we avoid the rune gain. By going over the footage, I was able to come up with a plan for the correct timing. Make sure to turn up the voice line audio, and when he is saying bathed in rays of gold, jump off when he starts saying gold. Victory! Lowly Godric, thou art unfit, even for your runes. With that out of the way, I tried Draconic Tree Sentinel some more. To avoid gaining runes from the Draconic Tree Sentinel, we have a convenient ledge to jump off of. Honestly weird how many convenient ledges there are in this game, but I'm not questioning it. However, that's not the only reason we are fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel near the cliff. The main reason is for this. Huh. Well, that's weird. I got the rewards for killing the boss after I gained the runes. Maybe it was just a fluke and my timing was off. Let's run that back. Okay. This is certainly a problem. It could be a timing issue, but I jumped off near instantly when the Draconic Tree Sentinel fell. To the point where I think world bosses might just die too fast for you to be able to avoid the rune gain. Moreover, I get the runes right after the victory text and not the rewards, meaning it may very well be impossible to avoid gaining runes from world bosses. Without killing the Draconic Tree Sentinel, you will never be able to access the capital. And even if you did get past him, the way is blocked. Now, some of our more knowledgeable or observant viewers might have noticed something I glossed over a couple minutes ago. By killing Godric, we did in fact gain a rune. One singular rune. A great rune at that. While this doesn't affect our counter in the bottom right, for a run where the goal is to avoid gaining runes, gaining a great rune would certainly ruin the theme of the run. Unfortunately, it's impossible to avoid gaining great runes. Unless you just didn't kill the bosses in the first place, then you could avoid gaining them in theory. However, if we avoid killing Godric, we will no longer be able to obtain Rogier's rapier, and since it's impossible to get into the capital without gaining 2 great runes, trying to beat the game without gaining any great runes on top of regular runes is a fool's errand. Although, I suppose it's lucky for you that I'm feeling rather foolish today. Let's pull up a list of our rune bearers real quick. We have Mohg, Melania, Rykard, Radahn, Godric, and Rennala. All of them are technically optional bosses, although you still need to kill at least 2 to enter the capital. The only required great rune is Morgott's, since his seal is what prevents you from progressing past the capital into the mountaintops of giants. Meaning, if you could somehow skip the royal capital entirely, you could beat the game without gaining great runes as well. But is such a thing even possible? When losing is not an option and victory seems impossible, a Souls player is left but one choice: to engage in some mild shenanigans. This is the point in the run where things are about to get a little silly. Well, it's about damn time. Took long enough. Seriously? I wasn't joking. I spent well over 5 hours straight getting this skip to work. It was not fun in the slightest, and I still have nightmares about it. But with that accomplished, beating Elden Ring without gaining any runes should be entirely possible. Of course, there's still a couple huge problems down the road, but I'm sure I'll find some way to solve them. Thank you, random stranger, for this kind piece of foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is a narrative device that...
There can be no hope in this hell. No hope at all.
Now, there are 2 major problems with the Godskin duo. The first is, this boss fight already sucks. Godskin duo makes Bed of Chaos look like Artorias by comparison. Now that's just how the fight is on a normal playthrough. As you have probably realized by now, I'm not exactly in a position a normal character would be in at the moment. My damage sucks, I get one shot, and the fight isn't balanced properly. The second being, since there is no cliffs to jump off of, how am I going to end myself to avoid the rune gain? If I can't even do that, then my victory will be for nothing. Well, nothing a quick YouTube search won't fix. I appreciate the sentiment, YouTube, but you're not helping right now. I guess I'll just worry about that later. My first objective is to give myself the ability to remove one of the god skins from the fray. That's right, sleep pots. Responsible for about 90% of all Godskin Duo victories, this item is the GOAT. Without it, you'd be kind of screwed. That being said, because of my low damage, I won't be able to harness its full power, but without its help, I'd surely descend into madness. Alright, we need to obtain the crafting kit first to craft anything. No matter.
Then why not purchase a little something?
Well, it's certainly not optimal, nor what I planned, but there is more than one way to inflict sleep. There's quite a few options if you want to sleep a boss. While most of them aren't obtainable in this challenge, there is still one that I can use. Okay, minor issue, but nothing I can't solve. I just need to grab the intelligence physic knot, and I will have enough stats to use the sword's weapon art. Now, while the sword does apply sleep, because of how long it takes to apply in a fight, it's very impractical. Before you can sleep the other godskin, the one you slept is already back up. And as much as I would love tickling this boss to death using sleep, it just isn't my style. The Godskin duo is undoubtedly the worst fight in the game. If you've ever watched no-hit kills without sleep of these guys, it plays out like actual torture. The gameplay is so passive compared to every other boss fight, it just isn't fun anymore. I eventually get down a decent strategy, but between the low damage, the FP consumption, and the fact that the Physic Flask only lasts for 3 minutes, it just isn't sustainable in the long run. Okay, time for Plan C. One of the great things about Poison is that it will deal the same amount of damage regardless of level or ability, perfect for a run like this. Of course, we still have some options on how to apply poison to our enemies. Not many options, mind you, but I'm just glad I have a choice in the first place this time. And after killing the scarab and getting the poison mist spell, we just need to grab the faith tier so we can use the spell. Wait, why did I gain runes? Where did that come from? Maybe that was just a fluke. Well, that solves that mystery at least. Stupid ballista. If you keep to the left, you can avoid the rune gain from the ballista, only to get another mysterious rune gain later, so it may very well be impossible to grab this item. Luckily, Elden Ring has many options on how to increase your stats without leveling up. By going to Lernia of the Lakes and into this ruin here, I can grab the 2-finger heirloom, increasing my faith by 5. And then back to the royal capital to grab myself a seal, that way I can actually cast the spell. A seal that I, unfortunately, don't meet the requirements for. Except for the fact, you can still cast spells even if you don't meet the requirements for the spell catalyst. This does weaken your spells in return, though. Well, normally, at least. For spells like Poison Mist that have a set damage, it doesn't matter if you meet the requirements for the seal or not. So long as you can cast a spell, you will always deal the same amount of poison proc points and poison damage. So I go and test the Poison Mist on the boss, and run into a pretty big issue. It just doesn't seem to want to proc. Like, at all. Not to mention the fact that even if you do proc it, poison really doesn't deal that much damage overall, and it's really slow. Since I don't even output enough damage to kill him before my flasks run out, this strategy is ultimately not sustainable either. Alright, that's been patched. Lovely. Guess I'm stuck doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm starting to run out of options, but by using an alternate route in Weeping Peninsula, you can avoid gaining runes, and I mentally prepare myself for what I must do, for the suffering that shall follow. So one day I may obtain victory, and then I use the teleporter at the Tower of Return to go directly to the royal capital. It's time. We must wrong warp again. And after just an hour of trying, I managed to successfully get it. Well, that wasn't so bad. Now, the reason we did this skip independently is simple. There's a few items in the royal capital that will help me out quite a bit, but specifically I want to get the Bloodlust Ash of War. This would allow me to give myself a minor scratch, so I can safely end myself before any boss to avoid the rune gain. However, the seal is blocking the way to the Grand Lift of Rold, and we can't kill Morgott without gaining his Great Rune. The skip here requires Assassin's Gambit and a Dragon Breath incant, both of which are quite unobtainable. Okay. Well, while I'm here, might as well grab the shield ring. Of course, that doesn't solve our crippling damage problem. To that end, I head to grab the Hoarfrost Stomp Ash of War from a Teardrop Scarab. I go test the damage against a duo, and it's a massive improvement. Although the strategy of hide behind the pillar and spam Ash of War is rather overdone. It won't work in this case either because the weapon is unupgraded, but whatever works. While being able to proc Frost on them certainly helps, the base damage of the Ash of War is rather low because my weapon isn't upgraded, so I don't have nearly enough FP to get the boss to half, even if I played perfectly. What about if I improved our ability to poison? After asking my friend Influx, I found out that the Poison Mist Ash of War is way better for proccing poison than the actual spell counterpart, for some reason. Yeah, I'm still confused about that one as well, but asked FromSoft, not me. And lastly, I grabbed the Star Fist for some moral support. I test the Poison Mist Ash of War, and the difference is immediately noticeable. It procs way faster and does a decent amount of damage to the boss over a period of time. Definitely a major improvement. And while I could beat the entire fight relying only on Poison Mist, by my math, allocating time for the poison to take effect, plus how long it takes for it to run its course, plus how much damage it does, and accounting for increased resistances, it would take about roughly 38 minutes for the Godskin duo to die if you played perfectly. Yeah, I'm a Souls player, not a masochist. Granted, the difference may be hard to spot, but I'm not doing that shit. Okay, time for playing... Okay, what was the next letter again? There is an Ash of War called Chilling Mist that you get from a Teardrop Scarab near the Three Sisters. This particular Ash of War procs Frost very fast and for minimal FP cost, making it an optimal choice not only for the Godskin duo, but any boss we also fight later. Of course, there's a big problem of a boss is blocking the way, Ghost Loretta. This boss in particular isn't actually too much of a problem. Even if I'm rusty at Elden Ring, I fought Loretta many times during my experience at Night Rain. Of course, I don't exactly have a magical tombstone or an explosive crossbow to help me this time, but since it's an early game boss, the health bar doesn't intimidate me. Now, the question remains, how will I eliminate myself to avoid rune gain without a cliff to jump off of? Remember when I grabbed the Bloodblade Ash of War? Well, the Ash of War deals damage to you. Well, sometimes. To be precise, only the first input of the Ash of War will inflict self-damage. Any successive inputs won't damage you. meaning you have to wait until the full animation is finished before inputting again so you can actually get yourself into one-shot range. And yes, the damage from Bloodblade can be lethal. All that's left is to do it. I timed that almost perfectly. However, the runes gained way faster than normal, making this boss impossible. But why is that? The rune gain was actually normal for a boss. It wasn't particularly faster compared to a boss like Margit. So why was I able to avoid rune gain from Margit and not Loretta? The answer is simple. Ultimately, it all boils down to death times. When you die to gravity, the fade to black is actually significantly faster compared to a self-inflicted death like using the seppuku skill or Bloodblade to end yourself, meaning if a boss doesn't have a cliff to jump off of, the only way to avoid rune gain is if you die before the boss is killed, with the sole exception of bosses that have long-ass death monologues. You know, if I'm lucky, I might get Godskin Duo killed before I go through the entire alphabet. Perhaps I can have spirit summons kill the boss while I'm dying. Oh right, Ronnie will stop appearing here after a certain amount of time. It's not like this would have been the simplest solution to the problem or anything. And you can't get the bell past this point in the game without spending runes. This is the pain that comes with going into these types of runs without a plan. It definitely makes for better content, but I am in pain. Help me! Help me! In any case, I'm not restarting the run just so I can grab the spirit bell. I'll just be in my corner, crying. It's time for a bit of a detour to the Siofra River. Now, you're probably wondering what my plan is, but stick with me for a bit. I have a plan that, if successful, will prove a theory that will allow me to avoid rune gain from any boss. Theoretically. But for that to be successful, I first need to grab some bubbles. I do need more stats to use this spell though. Time for a bit of a scavenger hunt. I'm never going to escape random things dying, am I? Attempt 2 goes better because I actually figured out where I was supposed to go, avoiding the Dragonkin soldier and picking up Marika's source seal. Or maybe Mesmer's Eye? I'm not too great about the lore on all that. Now, it's not quite enough, but all I need to grab is one more item to increase my arcane enough to cast the spell. And I'm sure this item won't be completely out of the way. Please don't do it! You have so much to live for! We can talk about this! Luckily, I don't have to kill the Godskin Noble to get to the item I need. However, it is still quite a distance away, and after looking up a quick guide on how the hell I'm supposed to get to the room the stuff is in, I successfully grab my rewards. By equipping the Albinuric Mask, Marika's Scar Seal, and drinking the Physic to boost your int, I can finally use the spell. And now for the hard part. The first step to making this work is ensuring the boss is immobile. By quitting out in that specific corner and reloading in, Ghost Loretta's boss AI will be frozen, allowing me to do whatever I need. The next part requires very specific timing, so be careful. This only works if both you and the boss are one-shot, so learn the exact amount of attacks the boss can handle so you aren't caught unaware. Then cast your bubble spell and end yourself. If everything goes right, the slow-moving bubbles will kill the immobile boss when you are halfway through your death animation. So close. I think all I need to do is get the most distance possible, and hopefully success will follow. It was only barely possible, but possible nonetheless. Now I can finally claim the reward at the end of this goose chase, the Frost Mist Ash of War. One of the things about the Mist Ash of Wars is that only one can exist at a time, so we can't stack the poison and the frost together at the same time, but after I proc frost, I can then switch to poison while I'm waiting for it to reset. I'm starting to get farther in the fight than before, which isn't saying much considering I haven't even gotten one of the god skins killed yet, but progress is progress. Frost Mist would normally be more than enough to carry a fight, except for one tiny fact about Godskin. This boss sucks when it comes down to status effects. Now you see, Frost would normally deal 7% of a boss's max HP, plus 30 damage, and reduce their defense, meaning the Godskin duo would die after just about 15 procs of Frost or so. While this is difficult to achieve, considering frost resistance increases with each proc, it's still barely within the realm of possibility. Except that's not how Godskin Duo works, because of course it isn't. The Frostbite doesn't deal the percentage damage to the boss health bar at the bottom, instead it's dealt to the individual Godskin. Meaning it takes 15 procs of Frostbite to kill one Godskin in the Godskin Duo, not the entire boss health bar. Combine that with the fact that you have to kill them 3 to 4 times for the boss to die, and you're looking closer to between 45 to 60 entire Frostbite procs to kill the boss, which is not feasible.
I may be out of sanity, but I'm sure as hell not out of options.
To that end, I'd like to grab a special weapon, meaning Patches has to die. Holy, look at those damage numbers. I haven't seen damage that high in years. It's beautiful. While the timing may be very precise to kill Patches without gaining runes, he is luckily a human, meaning we can poison him. This is by far the simplest method to ensure a boss dies after you do. Although when I tell you the timing is precise, I do mean it is very, very precise. But after subjecting Patches to Requiem, I finally succeed and lay him to rest permanently, gaining a pre-upgraded +7 spear as my reward. All that's left is to grab an Ash of War from this teleporting scarab, Golden Parry. With the Golden Parry Ash of War, it allows me to parry attacks at a longer distance. This way, positioning during a parry doesn't matter as much, and combined with our upgraded spear, we can riposte a Godskin Noble for some halfway decent damage. It would still take a lot of parries to kill the duo, but FP-wise, it's also more possible. Of course, you would still have to deal with Skinny interrupting you at punishable moments, and the second phase of the Noble is just so... It makes no logical sense. Granted, the second phase moveset is funny as hell to me, but it's still annoying. Although, this still isn't quite enough. Thanks for watching this far. As a small YouTuber, it takes a long time to make a video like this. Part of the reason why it's been so long since my last upload, but it's worth spending the time and effort to make a video like this good. If you want to help me continue making videos like this, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, or leaving a comment. It helps out more than you might think. It doesn't take long, but it does help me out a lot. If you don't know what type of thing to comment, just tell me what you enjoyed about the video. Seriously, what you do matters, and it lets other people watch and enjoy this video as well. With that, it's time to get back to your regularly scheduled suffering and whatnot. Everything we've grabbed and tried, our collective hopes, dreams, and hatred of this boss has led to this very moment. The sleep of the sword, the frost mist, the spear, the poison mist, and golden parry. Together, we can put together a combo strong enough to bring fear to the Godskin Duo. here's the thing. While I fully could spend the next 100 hours of my life perfecting this, it's not worth it. This fight is not fun whatsoever, and I have no interest in spending time perfecting a boss fight that I fundamentally hate. That's not why I do these challenge runs. Is it really worth making this run take a couple more months just to kill the Godskin duo? Hell, I'm already late as is. Not to mention the fact that even if I do win, there's still a pretty good chance I mess up avoiding the rune gain. So, instead I'm doing something that I've never done before in challenge runs. Allowing an NPC to actually help me in a boss fight. Now, the reason I'm summoning an NPC and not a player is simple. The first, NPC summons are not the sharpest tools in the shed. Sometimes I doubt that they're even in the shed in the first place. This means you still have to play actively to ensure the NPC doesn't die. And second, you can summon NPCs even if you are offline, meaning the challenge is completely possible without any outside co-op help. And lastly, summoning an actual player is a last-ditch resort for any challenge runs. On the few times I do summon a player, it's mainly for an item drop or for assistance with a glitch that requires 2 people. I'm sure some people will get mad at me for summoning an NPC, even if it doesn't break the rules of the challenge. NPC summons do take away the focus from the real challenge at hand, and normally I would say that opinion is valid. However, I still don't think you quite understand just how depressing and soul-crushing Godskin Duo is in a challenge like this. My mental health is more important than spending hundreds of hours on Godskin Duo just for a few minutes of content. Now, while we could use poison to set up the same thing as we saw with patches, it would still take a while to get the timing. And because my mental health is important, we are instead going to be trusting Bernal, the absolute unit that he is, to kill the boss while we are mid-death animation. The only problem being, Benharl is prone to dying before we do, so we have to figure out how to keep Benharl alive, so he can deal the majority of the damage to the boss and help us avoid the rune gain. To that end, the strategy is simple. Make sure to frostbite Skinny so Bernal will deal enough damage to him, and I will take the full aggro of the Noble. Make sure to damage the Noble as much as possible. If everything goes correctly, the Noble will be in second phase when Bernal comes to assist. Everything from this point is mainly up to RNG, but you will still have to play well to conserve Bernal's health. All that's left is to play my best and hope for victory. Bernal, you beautiful bastard, we did it. They can be felled. They can be beaten. And yeah, even with Bernal, it still took me about 3 hours to beat him with this method. That's after getting a ton of practice with this fight using the other methods. It almost took half of the alphabet, but I'm just glad it's over. Even with the Godskin Duo dead, we have no shortage of problems. This area isn't quite yet done giving me mental trauma, like these mysterious rune gains. Or not so mysterious rune gains. Although all you need to do is simply quit out at this point to prevent the dogs from jumping off into the void. And then for the most fun run of Fair Missoula, the Warhawks. Hawks that will also fall off the edge. Seriously, guys? You flew all this way to attack me, and now you're telling me you can't fly when your life is on the line? Yeah, that's right. Running past this area got so bad, I made a backup save after I got past the Hawks. I have more backup saves in Fair Missoula than just about any other area, that's how bad this was. And now, it's time for 𝐆𝐀𝐈𝐍𝐆. Now, call it a hunch, but I think I've forgotten how to fight this guy properly. Well, at least this fight is enjoyable, so I don't mind spending a few days on this. And after some more practice, I start getting a good feeling on what can and cannot be punished, and what is just outright dangerous to try and punish. And with that in mind, I feel that the only thing I need to grab is a weapon that will invalidate 𝐆𝐿𝐾𝐹's feelings. The location isn't that far out of the way, but you'll still need to grab snacks for the road trip. When you arrive at the castle, take a left and fight Maris. And after a short battle that only mildly violated the Geneva Convention, I jump off the cliff to test how I will need to time the deaths. But for some reason, I got a longer opportunity to avoid rune gain from an NPC than an actual boss, which I'm not questioning, we just take those. Now introducing the cancer stick. Just kidding. Now introducing... Wait, no. I said it right the first time. This weapon will inflict just about every major debuff known to mankind, if you know how to build it right, that is. Now, with the cancer stick in hand, you gain access to a cheese for the first phase of the fight. After you've given him most of the deadly diseases known to man, which does take skill, knowing the timings and all that, but once it's done, all you have to do is play keep away around any pillar in the arena until he is almost dead. Although sometimes you will have to hit him a few times after and proc Frostbite for him to actually transition into his second phase. Now, there's a few pros and cons to the second phase of 𝐆𝐿𝐾𝐹. For example, he now has better posture, and T-Rex arms, so he can't hit you sometimes if you just stick close to him. With the cons being, he is very fast and is obsessed with social distancing himself from your existence, and is suddenly Virgil, when you really need him not to be Virgil. Throughout the entirety of 𝐆𝐿𝐾𝐹's fight, there's a few rules that you need to adhere to at all times. And I know some of them are hard habits to break, but if you manage to know them, 𝐆𝐿𝐾𝐹 becomes much easier. The first is you will almost never roll backwards. For most every single one of his attacks, rolling backwards will just get you killed, with the sole exception of if he jumps into the air and lose sight of him. At that point, take whatever action is necessary to restore vision so you can dodge the next attack properly. When it comes to his air attacks, dodge most of the incoming projectiles sideways. If he is jumping at you from above with a plunge, roll backwards or to the sides. If he is coming at you after a couple blade projectiles, just roll into the attack. For his Berry, the light attack, the easiest way to dodge is once you notice him performing it, just dodge away. Alternatively, you can also dodge forward and to the right, although you might get clipped by the attack this way. Most of his other attacks can be dodged by simply rolling forward. Once you know all of the attacks and their respective timings, the rest is just knowing how many times you can punish each attack. Now, why don't I parry him, you might ask? While it is true that it would make it easier, considering I know the parry timings and getting the item without gaining runes is possible, there is one thing that prevents me from getting the item. Honor. To kill Bernal after he saved me from the pain of fighting Godskin Duo would bring shame to my bloodline. On that note, can I see some support for my boy Bernal in the comments? The guy is an absolute unit. And for those who are curious about replicating the conditions needed to kill 𝐆𝐿𝐾𝐹, if you have a similar build as me, once you get him to second phase, you need to proc Frostbite on him once, and then proc Poison and Rot on him. And then another Frost proc to get him low enough for the Poison and Rot to kill him. Depending on how good or bad you played, you might need to proc Poison on him one more time to push him over the edge. And yes, it took me a couple days to learn this fight, but I'm pretty good at it now. And eventually, all my hard work paid off.
Ah, my mortal nemesis, long deaf dialogue strikes again. Curse you, period, a long deaf dialogue.
Well, it's not the worst problem to have. It's just quite an annoying problem to have. All this has proven to me is one thing, that they can be filled. They can be beaten. All I need is a little more time, a little more skill, a little more consistent gameplay, just the right amount of luck, and most importantly, some sick beats. And once Malekith dies, simply walk off when he finishes saying the word destined. If you jump off after he says death, it will be too late. And finally, victory. Only 3 bosses remain. I've come this far. It's about time we finish this, shall we? Gideon Ofnir, the Lord of Spam. Another fight that I would really rather not do under these conditions. It wouldn't be the worst fight to grind out and learn, but I do have a second plan. Tell me, have you ever heard of intercontinental ballistic missiles? Step 1 to get a ballistic missile, specifically to mess with Gideon, get horribly lost. I guess that's what I deserve for relying on the wiki for most of my directions. I do finally go the right way, then kill the Scarab to get Frenzied Burst. Of course, I don't have enough faith to use it. I would need the faith physic. Luckily, now that I have a different grace from when I took the alternate route, I can safely grab the faith physic. Everything is coming together rather nicely. I deeply enjoy cheesing Gideon Ofnir. This is beautiful. I almost forgot what having fun looks like. Thank you, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, for reminding me about the true meaning of Christmas. Beating the shit out of Gideon Ofnir. Make sure to time your death well, because Gideon has a very long death dialogue. Luckily, the game provided you a place to jump off of in case he bores you to death. Thank you, Miyazaki. Shut up, Gideon. A man cannot kill a god. My ass, I kill a new one every Tuesday! It's time for perhaps one of my favorite fights in Elden Ring. The Chad himself, Godfrey. Although, I wonder how Morgott died. Guess he had a heart attack or something. I'm more confused about why the tree is burning. I never remember doing that either. Wait, doesn't that mean that Melina is technically alive in this timeline? Wouldn't that make this the good ending? Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. I love everything about this fight. The way he moves, his intro cutscene, even the lines he says when he kills you screams a battle between 2 honorable warriors. How could you not love it? As for the fight, I already know the first phase pretty decent, although when you're doing a run like this, you get to know the fight really well, including exceptions for and specific situations. For example, if Godfrey ever gets near a wall, try to get him back near the center of the arena. Fighting near the walls will mess up your camera and dodge timings. If you jump over his stomp attacks, which I recommend because you can punish them, make sure not to be too close to the leg when he stomps, because it has a separate hitbox. And if you're too close when you jump, you'll get hit by the leg and die. The majority of his axe attacks have some simple dodge timings, and if you're lucky and know your positioning well, most of them can be sidestepped with some skill. Of course, during Phase 1.5, you'll have arena-wide shockwaves, so get used to jumping a lot. It took me a lot of practice to get the first phase timings down, but after that, the biggest issue was Phase 2, which always seemed to kill me within moments. Even on my more casual playthroughs, I've always struggled heavily with the Horlu phase, meaning I have quite a bit of practice to do if I want to successfully beat this fight. But first off, I want to correct a minor issue. With the Ritual Shield Talisman, I'm able to survive some of his attacks, although just by barely, and plus 3 flasks isn't enough to fully heal me, which causes unnecessary downtime if I have to chug 2 flasks. So I take a quick pit stop to grab one more Sacred Tier to upgrade up to plus 4. And there's not really any point in upgrading it further because plus 4 is already enough to heal me to full, no matter what health I'm at. Besides being dead, of course. Something that I am very much familiar with at this point. I wonder if I've hit over 1,000 deaths during this challenge. Probably have. The safest way to defeat Horlu is to use the age-old strategy of run away and poke. I know, how amazing. He has a bunch of dangerous close-range attacks that come out quickly with different combo variations to them. However, the start of these combos are very predictable. During the fight, keep a medium distance away from him, otherwise you won't be able to punish all of his attacks. And it'll take forever for any rot or poison to proc on him. But even when you play aggressive, just the second part of this fight will take upwards of 8 to 10 minutes. For a reference, when I'm playing hyper-aggressive in first phase, an optimal time is a 3-minute kill. But what's important is playing patiently, while still being aggressive enough to kill the boss. If you're in close range after punishing him, make sure to roll to his right and then run away and jump if he does a stomp attack. He also has 2 different variations of his grab attack, which one requires you to roll into it to punish, while another requires a backwards roll to effectively punish. You'll just have to learn which is which by pattern recognition, though. It's certainly not the most fun way of playing, nor does it make it easy per se, but it is the most consistent method for a challenge like this. All that's left is to continue increasing my skill and have some patience. I could have swore I timed it correct. Because Godfrey has a death monologue, albeit a short one, it makes his window of success very hyper-specific, forcing me to have to die after the boss dies. A bit difficult if we are using the poison method, so I resort back to trying my good old friend, gravity. But sadly, you can't jump off the railings in this arena. Or can you? The first thing I try is seeing if using Loretta's Slash to jump over the railings might work. But this is the one time Miyazaki decided a fight near a cliff needed railing. Curse you, health and safety guidelines! But no health and safety guidelines can hold me back. I go and grab the Ground Slam Ash of War and try my luck with that. And while visually it should clear, Miyazaki has apparently decided otherwise. What we need is a reliable method to end myself that doesn't take long to set up, does decent damage, and can safely apply to ourselves in the middle of the fight, or fast enough that we can do it right after victory. But does such an item even exist? But we finally acquire the item we need. Wait a minute! Put that text back on screen. Don't you dare hide it from me! Do you really think I'm going to eat? Now, in case you're confused why I'm going out of my way to get an item to poison myself instead of just using the Bloodblade Ash of War, while it's technically possible to use Bloodblade to get yourself into one-shot range manually, it takes so long and leaves you open to many dangerous counterattacks, it ends up being impractical in a fight like Godfrey's. So being able to poison myself mid-fight and let it take its natural course will be a safer way to get into one-shot range and even perfectly time when we die. If I'm smart enough about it, theoretically, you could math it out just right so you die seconds after the boss dies, but ultimately, there's only one way to find out if it works.
Tarnished, thy strength befits same crown.
So close. Okay, I can probably win this, I just need to be a bit quicker. And after some luck and skill by timing everything perfectly, I managed to get a perfect trade.
Tarnished, thy strength befits same crown.
But it wasn't enough. Failure after failure after failure. If you die before Godfrey dies, you don't get credit. And even if you trade perfectly with the boss, you don't get credit. Meaning you have to die after he does. But because of how short his monologue is, you have to die a second after he dies, which isn't much time to prep. But eventually, I get an idea on how to win. I just simply have to time the poison by counting 10 seconds. Approximately 10 procs of the poison will occur, and then immediately heal. This will prevent the poison from killing you, allowing perfect one-shot range from the Bloodblade when the poison wears off. Then wait for Godfrey to almost die of poison, and then end yourself.
Tarnished, thy strength befits same crown.
As you can clearly see, even if you end yourself right after Godfrey dies, it doesn't cut it. You still gain runes. And if you don't get credit for killing Godfrey if you perfectly trade with him, how am I supposed to successfully avoid rune gain? Is this boss truly impossible? So I try again, ending myself exactly 1 second after Godfrey dies.
Tarnished, thy strength befits same crown.
And yet, it still wasn't enough. As you can clearly see, the timings are very, very tight. You can't die before Godfrey dies, can't die 1 second after, and can't trade with him. All fail for different reasons. Meaning the theoretical window for success on Godfrey is less than half a second long. But is that even possible? I have killed this man so many times, but he just won't work with me. Theoretically, by timing the poison to put myself on a magic pixel, giving rot to Horlu, and counting the tick speed in relation to how long it takes to use my weapon art, I could time it so I can die almost exactly a few frames after Horlu dies. It would require a flawless kill of Godfrey. Everything would have to fall perfectly into place. But is it even possible to hit that tight of a success window? Whether or not it is probable, you can be sure as hell as a Dark Souls player that I'll fight to make it possible. avoiding the rune gain from Godfrey, is quite literally frame perfect. For reference, I died 2 to 3 frames after he did, but the most important thing is that it can in fact be done.
Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
One last boss remains. It's too late to give up now. However, this fight may very well be impossible, for a few simple reasons. I checked how long the Elden Beast takes to die in advance, and ending myself right after victory won't cut it this time, which leaves us only one option. We have to die before the Elden Beast does, which isn't an issue, right? We've been using poison, and it works just fine. Except there is one problem with that. The Elden Beast is immune to all status effects, leaving us quite out of options. There is a spell that could make everything easier, the Night Maiden's Mist, except it costs runes to buy. And even if I allowed it for this fight, there's no NPC summons to make my life easier. The bubble method wouldn't work either, since I can't freeze the Elden Beast's AI, and the boss would likely move out of the way before it finished. Not to mention how little damage the spell does in the first place. There are documented cases of the Elden Beast's AI getting frozen, but those are all on previous patches. And even then, the method of why it was happening was never fully known. So, what are our options? Tell me. Have you ever heard of parallel universes? From here, you can cheese the Elden Beast. Of course, doing this would require getting the Hand of Melania. Even if the weapon art is usable without meeting the dex requirement, since she drops a great rune, that's not possible. Not to mention the fact you can't transpose stuff without those doors being open. So you'd have to get someone to drop it for you, which I'm not doing either. The simple truth of the matter is there aren't many ways to avoid rune gain for Elden Beast, and the few that do exist, you would just gain runes trying to grab it, gain great runes, or just outright have to summon someone. But before I figure out how to exactly avoid rune gain, I still need to figure out how to beat Radagon. I'd love to give you a in-detailed guide on this shithead, but after some practice, my strategy boiled down to poisoning and rotting him, and then parrying him into submission until he curls up and dies. I don't even really know the parry timings all that well, I just kept smashing my head against a brick wall until I just started reacting to it on instinct. Good old-fashioned trial and error, never fails. After learning Radagon's fight sufficiently, it's time to find our method for Elden Beast. Since the bubble method won't work, we will just have to grab an equivalent one that doesn't move quite as slow, but has much better tracking. That way we can get it more consistently. To demonstrate, let's test the damage on Radagon. I said test the damage on Radagon! Radagon? Just let the spell hit you. It won't hurt you that bad. It is not that deep. Okay. Thank you, Radagon. So while it is possible to kill the Elden Beast this way, their health bar will have to be so minuscule for it to actually register. Meaning, we have to master this boss fight as well. But first, I make a quick detour to grab the Meteor Staff for some better spell scaling. After learning his fight to perfection after days of practice, all that's left is Elden Beast, and learning how to dodge Elden Stars and all his other attacks that break the Geneva Convention. Now, I could tell you all about the Elden Beast fight, or I can just show you by turning hours of death footage into an epic montage of me kicking Radagon's ass and then promptly getting hit by random Elden Beast bullshit. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that instead. Now, most of Elden Beast's attacks are simple to learn on their own. The main issue I'm having now is combination attacks of Elden Stars. There really isn't much you can do sometimes, but after many deaths and some close attempts, I realized the most consistent way to dodge the Elden Beast combo attacks is on horseback. From there, try to close the distance as fast as possible. Of course, that still leaves the issue of avoiding the rune gain, which is harder to set up than you might think. The simple truth of the matter is Elden Beast isn't that hard to kill. By using the Black Flame Tornado weapon art we got from beating the Godskin duo, we melt his health bar. And while you do need to know the safe punish windows for the skill, it's not that difficult to learn. The biggest issue is it just isn't the most optimal tool for getting him into that one-shot range. So when a normal person might have him dead already, I have to spend an extra 4 minutes prepping everything and making sure I can actually avoid the rune gain. That isn't to say that I'm not being one-shot by most of his attacks and have to redo a long first phase just to try again and get killed by some combo attacks of Elden Stars or hit by waves of bullshit at mid-range, which is not even possible to dodge fully at mid-range, by the way. It is an entirely positioning-based dodge, but I persist onwards. After many close attempts of trying to get the conditions just right, and even more outright failures, I finally see the light of victory. It's going to be one of those days, isn't it? And other times I overestimate the health remaining. But if Elden Beast isn't one-shot, my method of avoiding rune gain won't work. And other times I choose the time to use the spell poorly, and the Elden Beast is unable to kill me before he dies. Other times I die too early because the Elden Beast swam away, which is one of the reasons I chose Rancor Call. The tracking is nice, but my goodness, if the Elden Beast isn't annoying, it is out there.
I know in my bones a tarnished cannot become a lord. Not even you. A man cannot kill a god.
On the contrary, Gideon, I've killed many gods, most who were much stronger than you. Fish, you are not something to be feared or worshipped or even regarded. You are not worth the thoughts that inhabit my mind, yet you still stand in the way. The title of God does not befit thee. You are a mere mild hindrance after everything I've been through. You shall know my name, Fish. I have become John Elden Ring. The fallen leaves tell a story of how a tarnished became Elden Lord without gaining any runes, including those great runes that the demigods so cry about, on how BlueThunder accomplished what was thought to be impossible with the power of skill, determination, and a massive amount of backup saves. But his story is far from over. There are more places to visit, more impossibilities to disprove, and more gods to kill. There is no way of editing to properly convey just how long I spent doing this challenge. For fights like Malekith and Radagon, it took me a while to learn their movesets. The time it took me to beat this challenge is so much higher than my no soul run of Dark Souls 3, it isn't even funny. I expected because of how many options Elden Ring had that it would be easier, but the difference in timings to avoid rune/soul gain is astronomical. But considering Melina is still alive lore-wise, I suppose this makes this run the unofficial good ending of Elden Ring and all worth it, or something like that. With all that being said, I'm not quite done with Elden Ring yet. If enough people want it and won't complain about me gaining great runes, I'll fight Melania and do the DLC as well. Just to see how possible beating the rest of Elden Ring without gaining runes is. If that's something any of y'all would be interested in, let me know, and I'll stream my attempts a week from now. No, I am not editing a video this length again for a while. I swear, I am burnt out. This is getting ridiculous. I am not kidding. If I had fought Godskin Duo any longer, I would be having mental health issues. Special thanks to Atomable and Influx for helping me with this video, and to everyone who also enjoyed this video. I'm glad you managed to find me. If you liked this video, then please check out my Dark Souls 3 without gaining souls. I promise you, you will enjoy it, and it helps me out a lot as well. But with that, until next time, don't you dare go hollow.